I've scaled roughly 23 e-commerce brands past $250,000 per month in revenue exclusively using Google Ads in the last 5 years. And through this experience, I've been able to develop a strategy that works every single time to scale beyond $250,000 per month in revenue. And it doesn't really matter what niche or industry your brand is in, or whether you're stuck at a $50,000 per month or $100,000 per month. This strategy should work if you apply it the right way. Now, before we actually get into the actual nitty-gritty details, let's first take a step back to understand what separates an e-commerce brand that's doing $250,000 per month in revenue and more exclusively using Google Ads. And to illustrate this, I'm going to go over two separate examples of ad accounts which we are working with under my Google Ads agency or marketing, both in the same exact niches but with completely different results, so I can show you exactly how this works. Now, first brand right here, we have been working for almost 2 years with at this point of time. We have currently a 3-campaign approach going on because what we found out is simple works the best, which, by the way, is one of the most crucial parts of actually scaling beyond $250,000 per month in revenue. But as we can see right here, last 30 days it's done roughly $366,000. And if we change this to all time, we can get a better understanding of how things have been for a very long time for this brand. So on a month-to-month basis, and from the beginning, essentially from 2020, we weren't working with the brand during this time, but during this time, essentially, it had already almost reached $250,000 a month. It was just shy of a few $1,000s from it. However, things dropped again because of certain changes that old agency that was working with this ad accounts made. And as a result, they did not really hit the actual $250,000 mark until the end of 2021. That's essentially when we actually came into the picture around this time. But as of right now, we've been able to scale it to a position where this brand does no less than $250,000 in any of these given months, regardless of whether it's Q4 or not. Now, second brand right here, this is a brand which we actually started working with towards the beginning of January. In the last 30 days, this brand has done only about $83,000, so it's still a work in progress. However, what you want to understand is both of these brands are in the same exact niches. In fact, some of the products both these brands sell overlap each other and sometimes cause competition. But the market is so big within this industry that just a little bit of competition like this, it's not going to harm either of these brands. Now, what's the main difference behind both of these brands? Why is one brand able to scale to such consistent levels while the other brand, which has a good amount of data as well, although we started working with them last month, this brand has been running ads for a couple of months as well. As we can see, it started back in end of 2023 essentially, so it's been running for a little over a year at this point of time. But the main reason why is because the first brand, which does over $250,000 per month, followed a simple formula. Essentially, what we implemented here is a formula called simplification, leading to expansion, leading to simplification once again. Now, this formula broken down on a fundamental level, what it essentially says is whatever current campaign strategies you have running at any given time, whatever is currently getting optimized, you want to simplify this entire approach, because 9 times out of 10, what I see with e-commerce brands at this stage that are below $250K per month is they have way too many things going on. Same issue was happening for this brand during that period of time. If we go back just a little bit in time, maybe to the beginning of 2023, essentially, what we can see is during this time when we were not working with this brand, they had a lot of things going on. They were trying to make things work through a bunch of different campaigns. I mean, during that time, if we just rank it by the cost, we can see that in total, there were a whole bunch of campaigns, specifically 10 different campaigns running at that time, trying to generate revenue. And during that time, although things seemed like they were doing pretty decent, the reality was it was nowhere near the level of scale it is at this point of time. That's because the brand had not followed the simplification rule. In order to actually scale to the very next level from 50, 100, 150K to 250K per month and beyond, you need to actually reduce. You need to simplify your entire approach. And with this brand right here, when we first started work last month, essentially it was also doing the same thing. There was just too many things going on, too many things getting tested all at the same time. And all this was doing was it was causing a lot of internal overlap. It was causing internal bidding. The products were competing against each other. The algorithm basically didn't know what was the right keyword versus what was the wrong keyword. So simplification involves going into your ad account right at this point of time and basically reducing and getting rid of whatever is causing overlap, whatever is not working, whatever is wasting your money. This could be products, this could be unnecessary campaigns, this could be unnecessary things you have going on in the back end, like A/B test even, or landing page experiments, or just anything along the lines which is causing overlap or just isn't needed at this point of time. You need to get rid of, because simplification then leads to expansion, which is the second step of this process. Now, once we had kind of simplified the entire approach, once we started working together in the middle of basically 2023, 2024, that's when we were really able to, within a month or two, start to lower what was running within this ad account. So as you can see, within that few months period, we went from 10 campaigns to 8 campaigns. And then from those 8 campaigns now in the last 30 days, we just have a select few campaigns running at this point of time, which essentially is 3 campaigns. So we simplified the approach, took it from that amount of campaigns to lower amount of campaigns. And at the same time, we only started focusing on the products and the strategies which are showing proof of work, basically. So this first campaign right here, this first campaign approach, it's a feed only approach. That's literally it. It's only going after shopping placements, nothing else at this point of time, because we simplified the approach originally to go after one select approach. As you can see, very simple approach, no signals at all either. And this is because for this brand, we found out this is what works the best. It was done after simplification and after actually analyzing the results. The second campaign right here, this is something I call the catch-all standard shopping approach, which runs at a very high restriction, 900% target ROAS, but it's designed to not generate volume, but rather high levels of return on ad spend, high levels of profitability. So as you can see, it's running at an 18x ROAS. And finally, a simple brand search campaign, barely spending any of the money, around 10 to 20% of the budget, but generating back almost 6 figures per month in revenue just from that alone. So very simplistic approach. That's exactly also what we plan to do with this brand right here in the past few days. So what we have been doing is we've been now slowly simplifying the entire approach, going from those 7-8 campaigns down to 5, and then slowly as we start to get more results, we're going to analyze and optimize these to further narrow it down to maybe 2 or 3 campaigns. Because the reality is 9 out of 10 brands don't need that many campaigns to scale to $250,000 or more. The reality is the real scale at that level starts from the foundation up. So although simplification expansion is one part of the approach, the next step is actually going into the fundamentals, the foundations, and fixing from the ground up. In this situation, it's the product feed and what you do on the landing page, what kind of experience you give to your users, and just everything that is involved on the ground level. Now, in terms of the product feed, what we do for most brands, by the way, which work under my agency, which if you run a brand doing $50,000 per month or more in revenue, we need extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads. Go onto my website at yourmarketing.com, schedule a pre-call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together and make that happen. But essentially, the simplification approach also involves the product feed. So what we are doing in order to scale beyond $250K per month or more is essentially we are looking at the main products which are generating the most amounts of sales or the most amounts of profitability, and we're trying to understand, number 1, what is the title strategy for that product, number 2, what is the product image strategy, and number 3, are there more competitors or less for those individual specific product types versus what the other products which we're selling on our website. Now, with the product title strategy, what we are trying to understand is, do the product titles within this niche need to be big, or do they need to be small? Do they need to have more SEO keywords within them, or do they need more perceived value increasing words? All these things we are looking for when we analyze these top products which are getting us the most sales and the return on ad spend, because what that lets us know is how we can structure our entire strategy for the rest of the product titles. The chances are that if this title strategy is working for a select few products, those that are not even similar to each other, maybe you have different sub collections or sub niches within your brand as a whole, then the chances are high that that strategy is going to work for the rest of your products as well. So that's what we're trying to understand and then implement across all of our product catalog, because that then brings us to the product image strategy. Now, in this situation, what we saw initially when we began the simplification approach is most of these products work better with plain white background image styles. I mean, the CTRs aren't the best, 0.59, 1.30, some are 3%, but most are not that high. But despite that, return on ad spend exceeds the levels that we want it to exceed. So this let us know that this plain white simple background image strategy actually is working the best, and that's exactly what we are implementing for this brand as of now as well. But essentially, product images let you know for the winning products what needs to be done for the rest of the product SKUs as well. And then following up with that to the actual Google Merchant Center backend promotions, the competitors, what they're doing, essentially what they have versus what they don't have. All those things we're analyzing and we're optimizing based around what most of the competitors are doing, because the main goal in order to scale beyond 250K or more per month in revenue with Google is to be the opposite of our competitors. And in this situation, a lot of competitors are trying all sorts of funky things. They have these colorful background images going on. They have the product in a real lifestyle background, but the product itself is not really visible, and all these unnecessary things, which gives us an idea of what to do to be the opposite in this situation. Just be plain simple. But in addition to that, coming down now from the product feed to the campaign strategies, because at the end of the day, if you don't have the right campaign strategies, no amounts of product feed optimizations are going to help, period. So with the campaign strategies, we're actually basing it based around the number of products within the brand. So both of these brands have a high level of SKU count, which means that we need to take a more of a simplistic approach as well here, because the more SKUs you have, the higher the chances that you will end up overspending unnecessarily trying to test all of your products. So what we did here, and what we were also doing for this other brand in the same exact niche, is we're implementing a made hero campaign that's a smart bidding based campaign going after certain main products. Now, in this situation, we have that campaign here going on at this point of time. But we have the second campaign going after the rare products, or the products with lower amounts of search volume, just within this campaign alone. This is another strategy you can be implementing, but we're trying to keep it as simple as possible, going out with a holistic approach rather than having 5-10 different segregated campaigns with a bunch of stuff going on. Because at the end of the day, all that does is it really adds a lot of complexity, especially when you don't need that and to get to a certain level of scale. Once you hit maybe 250K, 300K per month in revenue from Google, that's when you can go ahead and add a little bit more complexity. But along with the campaign strategies as a whole, what we are focused on is more on the bidding and budget strategies. We're trying to go after smart bidding only for these campaigns. Of course, with branded search, it can be manual based bidding. But in this situation, if we now go on over to the settings section of this campaign, we can see that we're actually running it on a very, very simple approach, very simple setup, nothing too crazy going on here at this point of time. The actual target ROAS is based on the real numbers, which we have been able to achieve within the last 30, 60, 90 days. So the key here is to choose numbers which you have already been achieving. And it's the same thing for this other brand as well. We are trying to implement restrictions based around what the results have been within the last 30, 60, 90 days. And at this point of time, it's around 575%. So what you want to know for the restriction side of things to get to this level of scale is the less restrictions you have, the better it is. But of course, you need to make sure that your brand is profitable. In order to do this right, you need to start with small numbers of restriction. Maybe if the last 30 days average return on ad spend is like a 3x for your accounts, maybe start with a restriction of 2.50 or maybe 2.30 and so on and so forth. Then slowly increase those restrictions over time, because the moment you introduce too high of restrictions, what happens is you slow down the level of scale that your brand can achieve with Google Ads, and this makes it a lot more difficult for your brand to scale to the very next level. But all of this combined, all of these strategies combined, you need to understand that actually the time in the market plays a very big role as well. You saw that this brand right here was able to scale to a decent level of scale just in the last year or so. But what you don't understand is in order to get to this level of scale, this brand had to be running these campaigns since basically 2020. So almost 4 to 5 years it's been running these campaigns. And on the other hand, this brand, which is just starting to reach that level of scale, it has not been around for that long period of a time, which means it doesn't have the same level of budget. It doesn't have the same level of data inputs that the other brand has, because this started basically 2 to 3 years later. So it has 2 to 3 years less amounts of data, and it's going to take a little bit longer for this to optimize to that level of scale. But as you can see in the last few months, it has been slowly and steadily increasing to that scale, which is eventually going to happen in the next few months. But time in the market is very important to reach $250,000 or more per month in revenue. But once you apply all of these specific steps all together, you simplify the approaches, you make sure you're focusing on the product feed, and then you have the right campaign strategies as well, which you are optimizing and then expanding based on the positive results. That's when you can slowly and steadily increase your sales from 50, 100 to 250K and beyond. But again, if you run a brand doing $50,000 or more per month in revenue, you need some extra help scaling to the very next level with Google Ads, and you want to do it within a shorter period of time, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together and make that happen.